Good evening, everybody. Welcome to tonight's Committee of the Whole meeting. My name is Michael Clements. I am one of the aldermen from the 2nd Ward, along with Alderman Richard Marks. I have the great opportunity to be chairing this meeting tonight. I would ask for all of your forgiveness ahead of time this evening because this is the first time I've done this. So apologies in advance for any mistakes I might make, but if I get stuck, the city attorney or the city administrator will quickly get us moving in the right direction. With that said, please let the record show that all aldermen are present. And let's get started here on the agenda. So item number 2, approve committee of the whole minutes from August 13th, 2018. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Motion by Alderman Bruno, seconded by Alderman Marks. A voice vote will be sufficient for this. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Need a mug. Item number 3, oath of office for Police Officer Andrew Bloom. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, officer. Okay. Thank you. Mayor Burns, is there anything you'd like to say?
First of all, I want to make sure the mic's working. If Pete in the back room can give me a thumbs up. I've got a thumbs up. Life is good. Mr. Bloom, if you would please join us at the podium. Sure, no problem. And introduce your special guest. In fact, the whole south side of the room is yours.
Most of them. We got a few filled in here, but the one who likes to ball so much, that's my daughter, Elliot. So it's Elliot Bloom. We call her Ellie. It's my wife, Molly. In the third row here, I have my in-laws, Barry and Carol Sundberg. The next row, we've got the kids. So we have Violet Thorson, that's the oldest of that generation. And then we have Annie is sitting next to her. And in the back row, that's my mom and dad, John and Kathy Bloom. And then I have my sister, Valerie. Her husband's not here. He's away on business. But that's her son, Teddy, who's my godson. And then that's my sister, Laura. And that's my goddaughter. That's Sadie. And then that's her husband, Greg. And I think that's it. That's the only ones I can claim.
You don't have much room left.
Yeah, sorry.
Well, before I read a cheat sheet I have of you, I'm going to ask you momentarily to greet somebody who I think you may have met.
Okay.
But tonight also happens to be this young lady's final council meeting with the city of Geneva. And it's my pleasure, if you have not yet met, you will momentarily, but Commander Julie Nash. Commander Nash?
Yeah.
Commander, would you like to say a few words as you...
I told you don't want to open the mic to me, Mayor Burns.
But the chairman can control the sound, so...
That's true.
It's been a wonderful 28 years. I appreciated almost every part of it.
28 years. What do you think of that, Bloom?
That's pretty impressive. Geneva's been lucky for the last 28, huh?
Indeed. Well, you don't have to do that because she's leaving.
Got a whole other week. She's still got a full week left.
I know. Okay, Andrew, according to my notes here, you spent 6 years working for the University of Illinois Chicago Police Department.
That's correct, yes.
Wow. You'll be resigning as an investigator, attained after almost 4 years as a patrol officer, with field training and evidence technician experience. Additionally, you're leaving as the ranked number one on the sergeant's eligibility list at UIC.
The highest score anyone's ever gotten on that list, too. Not that I like to gloat or anything.
You're on TV, you know. Highest score ever on that test. Wow. Andrew is married, of course, to Molly. Lives in Batavia. Your daughter Ellie, of course, is with us. He identifies working out and spending time with his family as hobbies and interests. What kind of working out do you do?
I do a lot. I like to run, but I also do a lot of weights and kind of circuit kind of stuff.
Now, you told me you went to Western Illinois University.
I did.
And Alderman Radecki is also an alum.
There we go. That's good. Yep. Makes sense, right?
What was your fondest memory of Western Illinois?
Well, I'm on TV, right? So
This will be forever captured in our archives.
well, I mean, I met my beautiful wife there, so how could I say a better moment than that?
God. Now, it should be noted that Molly has a master's in social work, a graduate of Western Illinois, and master's degree earned at Aurora University. And talk about small world, folks. The Blooms know our friend Sam Hill. Isn't that awesome? You attended James B. Conant High School in Hoffman Estates.
Correct, yes.
You spent 7 years there.
Yeah. Best 7 ever, though.
It's the same place that Meduzia graduated from.
Yeah, I heard all about that today, yes.
Now, it says here in parentheses, a decade earlier than you.
Yeah, yep.
You're a proud graduate in 2005.
2005.
Fondest memory of high school?
I don't know. I don't know if there's one in particular. I didn't meet Molly there, so it's hard for me to pick that one out, I guess.
Extracurricular activities at Conant?
I didn't do a lot. I was working and stuff back then. I wasn't doing a lot of extracurricular stuff. I was a little too cool for school back in high school.
Is that right, huh? So you've shaped up since then?
Yeah, of course. I'm
What were
here
you
now.
doing working?
I was working at PetSmart, actually.
Really?
Yep.
No kidding.
I was a groomer. I did the
Hold
bathing
on,
and
hold
I
on.
did the bathing and the nails of all the dogs. Yeah.
Wait a minute.
Too cool for school?
You were,
I thought we were on the same team. We're both leathernecks. Come on.
you were a canine esthetician?
I don't know that term, but yeah, I suppose.
You did dogs' nails.
I did dogs' nails, yes. Yep. But not like the little frou-frou ones. I had to do like the pit bulls and Rottweilers and stuff. I had to
That
do
really
like the
sounds a
real.
lot tougher now. That's
It was like the tough aspect of that job.
Yeah. You completed an internship with the Hoffman Estates Police Department for 3 months in 2009, and then worked as a community service officer at Harper College for 3 years. Now, suffice it to say that your commute from Batavia to Geneva is a heck of a lot more tolerable than
80 miles a day I save.
80 miles a day.
Yep.
And did you drive in to the city?
Yep.
You did.
Yeah, I worked noon to 8 working investigations, so the train didn't make a whole lot of sense for me to be doing that late coming home. So I was driving every day.
That's amazing. What are you going to miss about big city life?
Probably for the next couple years at least, I'll miss, some of the fun you got to have being the police in Chicago. There was probably a little more excitement than I'll see here in Geneva, I'm guessing.
You know what we do every weekend?
What do we do?
We polish dogs' nails.
But that aspect, and then, still that was 6 years. That was a lot of my family there that those guys became. So I'm replacing them with a new family, though, so I'm excited for that step.
What motivates you most about joining the Geneva Police Department?
I think, I take a lot of pride in doing my job well, but being the fact that I'm being so close to home and serving a community that kind of is a little bit closer to us and an area that I can keep safe that will have a more profound effect on my family is probably a pretty big motivator for me.
That's wonderful. And I've been informed by the chief that on Sunday, you're out in the field.
That's correct, yes.
You spend this week administrative-wise,
That's correct.
getting to know the lay of the land, then you head out in the squad with Chuck Parisi.
Yep, Sunday morning, bright and early.
What time is that, 7?
7 a.m., yes.
Have you met Chuck Parisi?
I met him today, yes.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Is Parisi here tonight? No. Any questions about Parisi?
No, well, it was a brief meeting that lasted about like an hour and a half, so.
Now you're gonna be stuck in the car
so
for
I
8
think,
hours.
I think I got a pretty good handle so far. I think on who he is.
Parisi drives the only Chevette that we have on the force. Do you know what a Chevette is?
I don't, no.
Okay.
I guess I'll learn on Sunday, though.
Yes, you will. You ever seen the Flintstones?
I have seen the Flintstones, yes. So it's a lot of foot.
A lot of footwork, man.
Yeah.
Why did you want to become a police officer?
I just always had a pull for it. It was just something that, from as far back as I can remember, I always thought that being the police sounded like a fun job. You get to go out and meet new people every day and see a lot of things that people don't typically see, and that was always kind of a draw for me. I didn't want just like an office job or something like that, and so I always pursued it, and I've loved every minute of it.
How do you relax and unwind after a particularly challenging day?
Pretty much working out and running and stuff, those are my de-stressors. So I go hide in the basement and I let Molly, take care of little Ellie there and de-stressed.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Are you a video game guy?
Not so much, no.
And Molly, how is it to have a husband as a cop?
I always feel safe.
And you two are just like. Officer Bloom, please invite whomever you'd like to join you as we administer the oath.
Sure. I'll take Molly and Ellie, please stop looking at the watch for a minute.
I don't blame her, man. It's awesome. Let's sneak up here. Put you right like this. Yeah, no, whatever you like. Whatever's comfortable for you. Not at all. Okay, ready, Ellie? I'm going to kindly ask you to raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Andrew Bloom, having been appointed to the office of police officer in the city of Geneva, county of Kane, aforesaid, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
That I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of police officer
and I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of police officer
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
Well done.
Yeah.
Thank you. And if you guys need to sneak out, okay? Just gotta sign these documents here. And
That's correct.
All right, moving on to items of business. Item 4A, recommend suspending the rules to permit Alderman Clements to be the cow chairman for this meeting and to vote on all action items on this agenda. Please think carefully. A voice vote will be sufficient. Oh, yes, I need a motion.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Marks, seconded by Alderman Bruno. A voice vote will be sufficient. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay? All right, I abstain on that one. Motion carries 9-0. Item 4B, recommend draft resolution authorizing execution of a plat of easement for 715 Oakwood Drive. Do I have a motion? Motioned by Alderman Kilberg, second by Swanson. Okay, are there any comments or
Let me-
questions? Oh, I'm sorry, yes, please.
Again, back with our new format. So the item before you this evening is a resolution to request to execute a plat of easement for a public utility easement in order to protect the existing services for 424 East Side Drive. So basically, we have a utility easement going through a property that's being subdivided, and we need to keep services intact. And again, if there's any questions, we have Bob Van Gescam here from Superintendent of Water and Wastewater to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Now, are there any comments or questions from the dais? All right, seeing none, hearing none, anybody from the audience? Also seeing none, hearing none. A voice vote will be sufficient here. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item 4C, recommend draft resolution authorizing the purchase of one 2019 Ford all-wheel drive utility police interceptor for fire department command vehicle in the amount not to exceed $50,000 from Morrow Brothers Ford. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Alderman McGowan. Do I have a second? Alderman Burkhart, seconds.
Okay, so the item before you is to request authorization to the purchase a 2019 Ford all-wheel drive utility police interceptor and associated conversion items for an amount not to exceed $50,000. So again, the vehicle doesn't cost $50,000, that's the vehicle plus all the conversion to make it an emergency vehicle. This fire command vehicle will replace a 2006 Ford Expedition. This is one of 7 vehicles in the general fund that have been authorized in the fiscal year 19 budget for replacement. And if there's any additional questions, Chief Antonori is with us this evening.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions? Alderman Radecki?
Yeah, maybe it's in the packet, I didn't see it. How many miles are on the vehicle that we're selling right now? Or-
I don't know the miles, and Chief Antonori might, but I will tell you, we're literally, as we speak today, going on our 3rd transmission, is it, on this vehicle? Yes.
Quit driving it that way, for God's sakes.
It's got about 80,000 miles,
Okay.
high idle, and it's
Stephanie indicated it's getting a rebuilt transmission as we speak because it blew out on Friday.
Thank you.
Sure.
I'm just curious, how long does it take for the new vehicle, for it to get prepped?
It's going to have to be ordered. There's no more on the lot, so it'll be 120 days before it shows up, and then it usually takes about a month for all the different upfitters to, the labeler, the radio person, the light person, everything to kind of make it ready.
Okay, so about 4 months.
Yeah, so we're expecting to go in service sometime in early January is our hope.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else from the dais? No? Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody from the audience? No? All right. Here, a voice vote should be sufficient as well. So all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item 4D, recommend draft resolution authorizing waiver of bidding process and execution of an independent contract agreement with First Inspection Services Incorporated for plumbing plan review and inspection services through the end of fiscal year 2019-2020 as presented. Do I have a motion? So moved. A motion by Alderman Marks. Do I have a second? Second by Alderman McGowan. Stephanie?
Okay, so this one, the agenda item pretty much explains what we're doing, but you have an independent contractors agreement with First Inspection Services for plumbing plan review and inspection services. First Inspection Services have been providing residential, commercial, and industrial plumbing inspections for the city since 2013. We're currently not under a contract, reason being we had gone out to hire an in-house combo building inspector, and we weren't successful in those endeavors, so we're going back to the independent contracting route. Director DeGroot is here this evening if you have any additional questions.
Are there any questions or comments from the dais? Alderman Burkhart?
What's the challenge in filling that role in-house?
I think there's a lot of those positions available right now, and just finding the person that has all the certifications that can do it. You know, I think the first time we went out, we had an individual who was willing to take the position, but he wanted to keep his part-time job, and his part-time job involved doing work in Geneva, and we said you can't do both, so just the time, sign of the times.
Anyone else from the dais? Anybody from the audience? All right. A voice vote should be sufficient here, so all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item 4E, recommend draft resolution awarding bid and contract in the amount of $250,000 for sanitary sewer lining to Hauer Construction Incorporated. We'll go with that. Okay. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Alderman Bruno, seconded by Marks.
Okay, so this proposed resolution authorizes the execution of a contract with Hauer Construction, Inc. in an amount not to exceed $250,000. The contract is a result of a joint bid with the cities of Batavia and St. Charles for sanitary and storm sewer lining. Hauer Construction was the low bidder last year, and staff found their work to be in accordance with the specifications. Again, Superintendent Van Gescam is here this night to answer any questions you might have regarding this item.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the dais? Alderman Bruno?
Mr. Van Gescam, I ask this every time it comes up because I forget every time. But, roughly, this will put us at what percentage of our
Oh, geez.
line? Even 10%?
Yeah, that's what was coming to mind was 10%.
Okay, so still a ways to go.
Quite a ways to go, yes.
That's it, thanks.
Any other questions or comments? No, Alderman McGowan?
How long is the work that they're going to be doing expected to last?
We offered to get the best pricing. We said that they can pretty much go through the fiscal year to finish up. But once they get into town, they'll concentrate on, Geneva and not, switch over to St. Charles or Batavia. They'll do one community at a time. It doesn't take that long, maybe a couple weeks.
I guess well, what I meant to ask was, how long will their work actually last before it has to be done again?
Oh, I'm
Does that make
sorry.
sense?
Yeah, we're looking at, I believe, a 75-year life now is what they're talking about with the lining.
Okay, awesome. And so you mentioned that just this portion will cover about 10% of the existing,
Everything that we've done prior to this, including this, is about 10% of the system.
okay, and what percentage is left to be done as far as,
I would say because our system, contains a lot of PVC pipe, we're probably, I'd be guessing, maybe 50%
Okay.
is what's remaining.
thank you.
Anyone else? All right, anybody from the audience? Okay, voice vote will be sufficient. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries unanimously. Item 4F, recommend draft ordinance amending Title 10, Building Regulations of the Geneva City Code to adopt the 2015 edition of the International Residential Code, Energy Conservation Code, International Mechanical Code, International Fuel Gas Code, and International Swimming Pool and Spa Code. Do I have a motion? Motion by Alderman Kilberg, seconded by Alderman Ruby.
Okay, so this is a work that has been long in process. Again, it's amending Title 10 of the Geneva City Code to adopt the various International Residential Code and the other codes as mentioned. The copies of the codes are not in the packet because these are very thick codes, but we are required to have them available for public inspection for 30 days prior to adoption. So again, this item will not come before you next Tuesday. Instead, it will come before you on October 1st. I think there was a typo in the packet on that. We work very closely with our attorneys in drafting the ordinance, and this evening we have Eric Nelson, Building Commissioner, present, as well as Director DeGroot and Attorney Finson, who can answer any questions you might have. But again, we're adopting, with a few local amendments, these international building codes.
Thank you. Alderman Bruno.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not sure who would answer this, but we generally have followed the international codes on this, have we not?
Good evening. Your question, Ken, I'm sorry?
So haven't we historically generally followed the international codes as a basis for?
Yeah, right now, we're currently under the 2006
Okay, so we're
edition, so
just
it's 12 years in the
following
making,
them
so,
with
yeah.
some local amendments.
And it gets updated every 3 years as far as them coming out with a different code cycle.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Alderman McGowan?
Can you give one or two examples of change, Can you please give one or two examples of changes in the pool and spa code that homeowners will notice or have some questions about or anything
One
like
of the
that?
big changes was in the old code, well, the International Swimming Pool and Spa Code, this is brand new this year. It was always covered under the IRC, which is this book. They decided to take it out of this book and make it its own separate book. So that's one thing, and I'd say one of the biggest things, one of the amendments we have is, in the new code, they're taking away, you do not need a fence around the pool, that you can have a automatic cover. And we've taken that exception out, saying we want the cover, and you have to have the fence regardless. Whether you can put the cover on or not, that's up to them, but it has to have the fence. So that's one amendment we made.
So Geneva residents won't notice a difference in that regard, because our city code already requires a
Exactly.
fence, right?
Right. But it's a big change in the code today, but we're taking that exception out.
Are there any other specific examples you can think of that might affect Geneva homeowners?
No.
Okay, thank you.
As far as in a financial area, no, none.
What about non-financial?
Just the safety stuff where they have the in-pool skimmers where you can't go and sit down on one and get caught in the main drain and stuff like that, but that's been in the code for a while.
Okay. What about the other parts of the code? I know there's a lot in there, but is there anything that jumps out at you that's like gonna be really different?
I think a big thing that is, and it's been since really 2009, is the requirement for sprinklers in residential buildings. We never brought it up because we always were on the 2006, which it didn't require it. So in the 2012, it does say that residential sprinklers are required in all new houses. We are kind of amending that, saying that we're gonna put that on moratorium on until next year, and we can revisit it. And then if we decide to go ahead and put a moratorium on again, we can revisit it a year after that.
So these international codes are just kind of like suggestions that?
No, they're the bare minimum.
They're the bare
The
minimum.
bare minimum requirements for building a house.
Then why is it that the city of Geneva can opt to?
Amend them?
Or, yeah, amend or postpone?
We can always make them more stricter. We can't make them less strict. So basically what we've done is, in our amendments, we've actually cleaned up the language. Maybe they say in the general vicinity, where we'll go ahead and say, no, it has to be 15 feet. And it's just basically cleaning up the language and making it a little bit more stricter on our end.
So can you explain to me also, well, how, going back to what you said about the city of Geneva kind of postponing the
The sprinkler requirements.
yeah, the requirement for sprinklers in homes, how is the city able to delay that for a year?
We aren't saying that you can't have sprinklers or you have to have sprinklers. We're just saying that we're going to visit this in a year from now and see if they change things as far as the state fire marshal might change things. They might change the code. We're just not ready to really put that in. I think meeting with the fire chief here and the town surrounding, St. Charles doesn't require them. They're doing basically the same thing we are. Batavia's going to do the same thing. Aurora doesn't require sprinklers. They're doing a moratorium. Same thing with Elgin. So we're just, it's a big cost to push down on the people and stuff, and eventually it's gonna end up having the homeowners having to pay for it and stuff, so. We aren't saying that we aren't gonna do it, we're just waiting in a year and see what happens.
So does the international code just recommend at this point that residences be built with sprinkler systems installed, or is it a requirement?
It's a requirement.
Oh, sure.
It's more of a legal question. So I think if I understand your question correctly, you're wondering, is Geneva required to adopt any of these particular codes in their entirety? And what's our legal authority to modify those codes, right? If you look at the ordinance that we drafted at the very beginning, we talk about first of all, the city of Geneva is a non-home rule community. And so any authority that we have to do anything is driven by the authority that we are granted under state statute, principally in the municipal code. With respect to, and we're talking about a lot of different ordinances, there are certain rules that we can, ordinances that we can adopt with respect to home construction, home building, and those sorts of things, where we have some discretion. The IRC and these codes that we're talking about tonight, by and large, are codes that we have some discretion on. But the IRC represents, and that's what we're principally talking about here, it represents sort of the state of the art. It represents what experts have gone around and said, okay, this is what we expect as the minimums. Geneva has gotten together, as I understand it, from staff with neighboring communities and saying, okay, what do we want to adopt in this area, so that if you have a home builder in one city, or you have a home builder in one city and they come to Geneva, they're not going to be looking at a whole bunch of different standards. So we have it's a common standard. Now we have the authority in certain circumstances to do some things that are different. In some instances, for example, the plumbing code, we're restricted on what we can do. That's not before you tonight. But what the city has decided to do tonight, and what staff is recommending, is that we adopt these codes that are before you tonight by reference, subject to some minor limitations. And what Eric was, lost you there, what Eric was referencing is that in most instances, the city has decided to make the requirements more stringent than what are, to the extent that we put any amendments into the codes, make them more stringent. The one with the fire sprinkler, for example, is one where they decided, look, because of the potential impact on homeowners and things like that, we would like to maybe give ourselves a little more opportunity to visit how this will come into play. That is, and that's consistent with what the other municipalities have decided to do in the area, if I've got that right. So, does that help?
A little bit.
So, may I ask a question?
Yes.
Thank you. Just to clarify, just to put it simply, I think, after speaking with you, it sounds like the sprinklers are essentially a recommendation at this point, which is why we can kind of put a moratorium on that. It's not a requirement.
Yes.
Because I'm trying to go, it was said that we can be more strict, but not less strict. And I think that's where the confusion was coming from. So that
No, that's not exactly right. In some instances, we are required by statute to adopt certain codes. The IRC is not one of those instances.
Okay.
So we have the ability to fashion them as we see fit, but we do so at our own peril. And so what we are doing is relying on the expertise of the body that puts these together and saying they know what they're doing. But staff, in conjunction with other communities, have taken a look at the 2015 IRC and said, you know what, there are some minor local amendments that we would like to make because we think that's important for our community, either because of the potential economic impact, like with sprinklers, or because we say, you know what, maybe there's a requirement here that we think should be more stringent. And those local amendments are what are reflected in the ordinance.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
See, you won't ask me a question again.
Are there any more questions or comments from the dais? All right, anybody from the audience? All right. Voice vote should be sufficient here. So all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item 4G, recommend draft resolution authorizing execution of a license agreement between Preservation Bread and Wine LLC and the City of Geneva related to the construction of a new pedestrian doorway to the commuter parking deck at 597 South 3rd Street. Do I have a motion? Motion by Alderman McGowan, seconded by Alderman Maladra.
Okay. So the item here is a license agreement or recommended license agreement between Preservation Bread and Wine LLC and the City of Geneva, looking at converting the existing first floor window of the commuter parking garage to a pedestrian doorway. The doorway would provide ingress-egress between the parking garage and the outdoor dining area of Preservation. The term of the agreement is for 20 years. The licensee would be responsible for all costs associated with the conversion and the maintenance of that portion of the doorway passage which is not within the parking garage building. This evening we have the proposed licensee and Director DeGroot here to answer any questions that you might have regarding this license agreement.
Alderman Radecki.
Hey, David, I got a question for you. What's the primary driver behind making this change? Is it to provide an emergency exit for the licensee? Or, I mean, what's the benefit to the city? What's the benefit to the applicant? Why are we doing this?
That is the primary reason. As it sits now, or did, I should say, last week, the licensee had two means of egress from the outdoor dining area. A fence was recently put up in between this property and the Shodine lot off of South Street, eliminating one of those access points.
Who constructed that fence?
It was Shodine, and they were within their rights to do that. So we were looking for alternative means of egress from that area, and this was an idea that came up that was a solution that had minimal impact. There was no impact on the parking spaces, and something that the applicant or the owner was interested in pursuing. You're welcome.
Are there any other questions, comments? Alderman Bruno?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Lawrence, if you could join us. That looks like it's going to be an awesome space.
It is going to be a great space, yeah. We're very excited.
My only concern,
Excuse me, just one second. Could you state your name just for the record, please?
Lawrence Colburn.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Sorry.
One of my concerns, and I certainly want to give you that ingress-egress, is there any concern with basically people using it as a random cut-through, you know, through your, maybe it's just more business, I don't know, but.
Yeah, I was never against the existing cut-through.
Okay, yeah, I
People,
guess- I
people
guess it
seeing what we do, I think, is not necessarily a bad thing, so I don't see that as a negative if somebody was to pop out of the parking garage and find themselves on my property. They could look around and say, oh, maybe I want to stay, or they could say, I think I'm in the wrong spot, and kind of, but I hadn't even thought about it, but we did think about it in the previous situation where we were really not against people using that like they had for the last, who knows how long, 40 years, 50, forever. People have been cutting through there. And so that was always kind of a positive for me, always had been.
Okay.
You get to see what we do.
Good, and I don't know if this would be for David or public safety in terms of, would there be the need for any particular signage at that, like inside the parking garage leading into a private space, you know, entrance? Are you allowed, would preservation be allowed to put up preservation?
I mean, they would have to go through the sign permit process, but I don't think there's a need for any signage. Kind of, the idea is basically it provides emergency egress if need be. And much like Lauren said, if people find themselves somewhere they didn't want to be, they'll just go somewhere else.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, thanks, that's it.
Okay.
Anyone else? Nope. Anybody from the audience? No? All right, a voice vote should be sufficient here. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item 4H, recommend draft resolution authorizing execution of a plat of easement vacation for 1900 Averill Road. Thank you, Alderman Marks. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Bruno.
Okay, this is another plat of easement. This one is to actually vacate an existing easement so that the current property owner can construct an addition to their building. So the water main needs to be moved. Once we move the water main, then we would get a new easement. But until that water main's actually constructed, we won't get the easement till that time. So what we're doing is we're vacating one, and then a little bit down the road, you'll see another one where we'll be adding an easement. And again, Bob Van Guscom's here this evening if you have any other questions.
Thank you. Any questions, comments from the dais? Anybody from the audience? All right, a voice vote should be sufficient. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. On to item 5, any new business? Anyone from the dais? Alderman McGowan.
I would just like to mention that the Geneva beautification fall planting took place over the weekend, and it was just in time for all of the visitors to the, correct me if I'm mispronouncing this, Concours d'Elegance event to enjoy. I took Latin in high school, not French, so I have horrible French. So thank you to all of the volunteers who spent their time planting, and to all of our community partners who donated the plants. It turned out great. We had wonderful weather, and I will be informing everyone again. I believe there's a spring planting, and that's the next event for the beautification committee. So I will keep everybody posted. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Alderman Radecki?
Yeah, I'd just like to thank the Geneva Community Chest had their golf outing today, which Alderman Clements
Yes,
participated
shot a terrible
in.
game.
And also one of the board of directors members, Alderman Kilberg. It was a very successful event. They had more golfers than ever at the event. I think they raised more money than ever. It was well attended and enjoyed by all, so much success for them. So thank you.
Odd that Alderman Radecki would bring that up, because on the last hole, on a par 3, Alderman Radecki placed the ball about 12 inches from the hole.
It was about 10, actually.
Okay. Yes, he converted it. He converted it. But again, I would just like to reiterate what Alderman Radecki said. We have a lot of merchants in this community that get tapped a lot, but the generosity of our merchants and the way that they got behind this event was very very moving, and as Alderman Radecki said, it was probably the the most successful event that the community chest has ever had as far as fundraising. So, thanks to all.
Alderman Ruby?
Just a quick reminder, in case anyone missed it, school is back in session. So just a reminder for pedestrian safety, as in particular crosswalks, to yield and watch for kids as you're driving, slow down. And one other thing, I did witness a bicycle accident this weekend. She was wearing a helmet, thank goodness. So she will be okay, but she did go to the hospital, and just want to remind all the kids to wear their helmets. So I'm sure it saved this woman's life. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? No? All right. Item 6. Do I have any new business from the audience? Before I go to that, sorry. No? Okay. Do I have a motion to adjourn? So moved. So moved by Alderman Marks, seconded by Ruby. I think we're done here. All those in favor? Oh, yeah. I'll take a voice vote on this, too. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. 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 All those opposed? We're done. We're adjourned. Thank you. Nice job. Thank you. Well done. I appreciate it.